All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story you guys might have seen already, but this is probably the biggest story we've got in bodybuilding right now. So the 2021 Mr. Olympia has gotten the official dates and the location finally announced. So up until this point, from December of last year, there were no new dates for the Olympia confirmed, which is a very rare occurrence. The last time this happened was basically last year, and last year was one of the first times it ever happened where we didn't know when the Olympia was going to be and when the Olympia location got moved at the last minute. So this year, the 2021 Mr. Olympia will be held October 7th through the 10th. So it will be in October. So it looks like Jay Cutler was right in his recent video. So we had kind of heard this for a couple weeks now that it might be in October, and I've been hearing for about a month now that it was going to be in Florida again. But all of that was unconfirmed, and now we know for sure it will be in October, the 7th through the 10th, and it will be in Orlando, Florida. So there's a couple interesting things to consider here. Number one, I'm wondering if there is going to be an expo. So they originally posted this on the Mr. Olympia website, but they confirmed it on the Mr. Olympia Instagram page. And in the description of this, they mentioned the fact that the Orange County Convention Center will once again host the Olympia's main events, including the 57th edition of the Mr. Olympia competition, along with the new Olympia World Fitness Festival, formerly known as the Olympia Expo. The Hyatt Regency Orlando, connected to the convention center, will serve as the official host hotel. So this is going to be interesting to see because we still don't know if/when the Arnold Classic USA is even going to happen. It might not. We still have yet to get new dates for the Arnold Classic USA, and I'm guessing that those dates would be based on the dates of the Olympia. Optimally, you'd think they would want to hold it before the Olympia, so maybe we will see it happen before October, or maybe we won't see it happen at all. But the Expo I mentioned, because the Arnold Classic event in Ohio is heavily tied with its Expo. The Expo is pretty much the biggest Expo in bodybuilding. So I'm curious to see what direction the Olympia goes with its Expo this year and how that's going to reflect on, if we do get an Arnold Classic this year in Ohio, what their Expo is going to look like. Now, obviously, Ohio has different rules than Florida, so they might not be able to get away with what the Olympia does. But I think we'll see something similar between the two. Or might we see, for the first time in history, the Arnold Classic move to a different state and go to Florida? That's another possibility here. 2 years in a row, the Olympia now is in Florida, and a lot of major bodybuilding shows have been in Florida. Could the Arnold Classic follow suit? That's what I'm really looking at this point because, again, usually by this time, we're a couple weeks away from the Arnold Classic. That's all that we're talking about in the news leading up to March. And this year, there's nothing. So I do want to keep in mind the Arnold Classic might still happen, and that's still something we got to be looking at as to when it's going to be. Because basically in bodybuilding, the two biggest shows are the Arnold and the Olympia. So when we talk about the Olympia, I don't want to forget about that other big show being the Arnold, and hopefully we get that as well. It's good that we're getting the Olympia. It's good that we know the dates, but I'm still waiting for that Arnold Classic information. I'm sure a lot of you guys are as well. A lot of you guys I know go to the Arnold every year just like I do. Now, next up in the news, let's talk about some powerlifting stories. So yesterday, or the last news video, we already talked about Julius Maddox at the Hybrid Showdown 3 in Miami, Florida. Let's talk about Dan Bell, who just set a new all-time world record total with wraps. This guy is an absolute monster. So Dan Bell totaled 1,182.5 kilograms, 2,607 pounds. The first man ever to achieve this total in the raw with wraps category. His top lifts, including the squat, 500 kilograms, 1,102 pounds, a bench press of 272.5 kilograms, 600 pounds, and a max deadlift of 410 kgs, 904.5 pounds. So I wanted to include Dan in a separate video from Julius because we've been talking about Julius for so long. I wanted him to be in his own video, and I wanted to talk about some of the other lifters in a separate video because I knew Julius would overshadow it if it was in the same video. But I mean, these numbers are just insane. I mean, 1,000+ pound squat, 1,102 pounds, a 600-pound bench press. It's a world-class bench press, a nearly 1,000-pound deadlift. I mean, this guy isn't just specializing in one lift. That was the difference between him and Julius. This guy is a beast at all three, an absolute monster for the total of 2,607 pounds. So congratulations to Dan Bell, proving again that he is Dan the man. Now, this was a pretty impressive meet. Shout out to John Haack as well, who competed there. He had a very impressive bench press. Well, all his lifts are impressive, but his bench press to me particularly impresses me for his size. I believe he benched 572 there. He squatted 727 is what he squatted. And I think his max deadlift on his third attempt was like 883. I don't think he got that final attempt. I think he ended up at 832 on his second attempt. I've always been very impressed by John because he competes in the 181 category. The dude's a beast.
Come on.
But I want to talk about, bring it back to bodybuilding for a second with this transition. Jujimufu also competed at this meet. So to bring it back to bodybuilding for a second, Jujimufu was prepping for the Arnold Classic. That was going to be his bodybuilding debut at the Arnold Classic Amateur. Obviously, the Arnold Classic is no longer in March, so he's back to powerlifting for the time being at least. And Jujimufu's best three lifts being a 645-pound or 293 kg deadlift. Then he also had a bench press of 418 pounds, 190 kgs. And then if you go over to the squat, he had a 672-pound, 305 kg squat. So awesome by Jujimufu. Cool to see him competing in something. I know that we all wanted to see him compete at the Arnold Classic Amateur in March, but I guess it looks like we're all going to have to wait to see when the Arnold Classic does end up happening. I, for one, I think Jujimufu is good wherever he goes. He's entertaining in powerlifting. He's entertaining in gymnastics, acrobatics, all the stuff that he does, arm wrestling. He would have been entertaining in bodybuilding, but it's cool to see Juji do just about anything. So shout out to Juji also competing at that meet this past weekend. Now, bringing it full circle back to bodybuilding, Blessing Awodibu. So we got another physique update from Blessing here. So this time we get a front double bicep pose instead of just a front relax. So you get a little bit more of an idea of what Blessing is looking like at 10 weeks out or 11.5 weeks out from the New York Pro, 10 weeks out from the Indy Pro. This was posted on the Sulios Instagram page, so not posted on Blessing's. You get a little bit better idea of what we talk about with Blessing as far as having a small waist and a good V-taper, almost hitting kind of a vacuum pose in this front double bicep. And I think that's really going to be one of his stronger points compared to a guy like Nick Walker. Of course, we talk about Nick Walker kind of having a blocky waist, and Blessing's strong point really being having the height advantage, giving him kind of a longer tapered midsection, and the advantage that Nick has over Blessing, primarily the legs, and I think a little bit more density to his physique. So it's going to be an interesting battle at the New York Pro. Blessing looking to have a pretty aesthetic physique for a men's open bodybuilder, and that's part of why I've been so excited to finally see Blessing's pro debut, because off stage, obviously, it looks like he has plenty of size, and with that size, he looks very aesthetic, but that's all well and good on social media until you see them actually on stage against other pros, how big they actually look, how good they actually look, how conditioned they actually look next to guys that have been doing it. And that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing from Blessing, because on Instagram, he does look very aesthetic and he does look very big. And those are two things we like to see in men's open bodybuilding. So hopefully that translates accordingly for Blessing Awodibu. Now, the final story I wanted to talk about today, I wanted to switch it up a little bit and talk about women's physique, because Shanique Grant, a.k.a. The Real Fitness Beauty on Instagram, put up a pretty polarizing post on Instagram late last night. She is a two-time Women's Physique Miss Olympia. So this statement speaks very strong volumes coming from her. She says, women's physique makes 10% of what the open bodybuilders make at the Olympia. I'm not missing anything. Pay fair for once. I'm speaking my mind for once in almost a decade. Hashtag reality of bodybuilding. Now also, this is interesting because she also announced her retirement from the sport after this year's Miss Olympia. So it makes you wonder if the pay that she was getting was an influence in that decision to go a different direction. So what she's saying here is true. Men's open bodybuilding and pretty much all the other categories, there is a massive discrepancy in pay between all of them, between Classic, between 212, and all the women's categories. Men's open bodybuilding is miles ahead of all the other divisions in terms of pay, almost to what I would think would be an unfair discrepancy. I've already said this before because I think the gap between Classic Physique and Men's Open in terms of pay is extreme. I think it is unfair to the classic guys, because I think at this point, classic physique is almost bringing in as much hype as men's open bodybuilding as the men's open Mr. Olympia. I think as many people are watching those live streams and buying tickets to see Chris Bumstead, Breon Ainsley, and the classic guys, as there are people buying to see Big Ramy and Brandon Curry and Phil Heath. And there's also a huge pay discrepancy there. So this is a debate I'm curious to hear you guys weigh in on in the comment section down below. Do you think these other categories are paid fairly or not? If not, how much do you think they should be paid and why? And which category do you guys think is the most underpaid in contrast to men's open bodybuilding? Comment down below. Now, there is one more story I want to talk about in this video. So bodybuilding trading cards. It caught my attention that a bodybuilding photographer and video editor for HD Muscle, Big 3 Media on Instagram, is starting a bodybuilding trading card line. Now, I think this is a fascinating idea because obviously most other sports, if not every other sport, has their own trading cards. So she's going to start out with Antoine Vaillant, Regan Grimes, Jennifer Dory, Ricky Moten Jr., and Chris Bumstead. And I know plans on expanding in the future after this initial release. And I know some of the cards, like Chris Bumstead's cards, will be autographed. So these cards will be available for purchase. I'm not sure exactly when, but I think this is an extremely cool idea, and I wanted to showcase it here on the channel because honestly, I'm into trading cards. I'm sure a lot of you guys are. You guys know I started the Nick Strength and Pokemon channel. I think it would be very cool for bodybuilding to get its own trading card line. I think that's an awesome idea. I think a lot of people would collect them. And I think, honestly, this is something that has the potential to be huge. So if you guys are interested in this, check her out on Big 3 Media on Instagram. This is not a paid promo. I honestly just really like this idea, and hopefully it blows up and there continue to be more and more cards. So that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed yet already. As always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.